Yeah, reminiscing. Richie Rose shit, baby. Hey, look. Cause just be here will make you reminisce. Sitting back, pondering, wondering if this really it. I'm really it. Everyone told me since I was just a jit that I would make a difference. Like instantly started making hits. July 25th, moms and pops received the gift. That was me, the golden child, the black sheep. Now I'm grown and proud. Pops died, I was 12 or 13. Turned the crib at 13. That was some niggas' worst dream. Older sis was 16, older brother was 19. I looked up to him, I felt he taught me the right thing. I was skipping school and hanging all night on that night scene, flipping back, stealing cars and breaking their houses for nice things. Future looking lit, past colder than ice cream. Mom's throwing fits and I'm fighting and serving crack fiends. Where I'm from, you either the hustler or the doer. Had a fetish for cash and too much pride to be a doer. But don't get it twisted, I seen them hustlers turn to doers and doers turn to hustlers. That's the life in the sewer. My granny is my rock, she knew her grandbabies was rulers. So I'ma forever show my respect I ever knew you. Hallelujah. To God.
All right, peace. Mr. Erik, the Mad Science is True Knowledge. Come up with another one. I'm about to do this presentation on mythology because I hear a lot of people say they know about it, but when I talk to them and get them to understand, a lot of people don't know that they actually follow mythology a lot and considering it to be literal. So we're going to break down what mythology is, the different types of mythology. Let me make sure I get this straight. Make sure this pop up. Okay. So this is my lesson right here. Mythology, what, how, and why we used it. I'm gonna show the different types. I'm gonna show how they can take a person, put mythology over it, take an event, put mythology over it, and take creatures, put mythology over it. Why they created this mythology, what did it do at that time, you know, just break every single down. So after this, nobody should misunderstand what mythology is different from what literal. Okay, let's get to it. What, how, and why is myth used? Myths are a part of every culture in the world and are used to explain natural phenomena, where people came from and how their civilization developed and why things happen as they do. At the most basic level, myths comfort by giving a sense of order and meaning to what can sometimes seem a chaotic world. Mythology from the Greek mythos for a story of the people and logos for the word of speech. So the spoken story of the people is that the study and interpretation of often sacred tales or fables of a culture known as myths, or the collection of such stories which deal with various aspects of human condition, good and evil, the meaning of suffering, human origins, the origin of place, names, animals, cultural values, traditions, the meaning of life and death, the afterlife, ancestral stories of the gods or a god. Myths express the belief and values about these subjects held by certain cultures. What one calls mythology in the present day, it should be remembered, was a religion of the ancient past. The stories which make up the corpus of the ancient mythology serve the same purpose for the people of the time as the stories from accepted scripture do for people today. They explain, comforted, and directed an audience and further provided a sense of unity, cohesion, and protection to a community of like minded believers. So they're speaking on how people take the scriptures and stuff literal today. A lot of them was taking it literal at that time, but it was still mythology. It just was an explanation of them trying to explain certain phenomena and events that happened, that they really couldn't explain. So they created a myth about it, a fable, a legend. Okay. Four theories of myth. You got the functionalist, Myth theory explains to how myths help teach morality and social behavior by stating what we should and shouldn't do and the consequences of our wrongdoings. These theories also state that myth was created for only social control and served the purpose of ensuring steadiness in a society. So this talking about how you take a religion or take myths out of certain books and you use it for morality, meaning um, how we take the stories, knowing that it's a myth, but we take the lessons from the story. Like again, like we talk about the boy that cried wolf. It's a mythological story, but it's a lesson behind the story. Okay, creation myths from different cultures are all examples of rational myths. They explain how man was created and explain what God and goddesses used and what actions they took to create human beings. That's why we always speak on most nations had a creation story because most humans wanted to know, so they rationalized and made a myth on what they thought of how humans was created. You know, structural myths are said to be myths based on a human emotion. These types of myths show the two sides of human mind, the good side and the bad side. I'm gonna show you that how they thought that everything had a being that controlled, or they created a being that controlled everything. So when you had love, there was a god of love. Then you had the god of hate, the god of chaos, god of sleep, god of death. Stuff like that. All right, that's what mythology does for that type of stuff when it comes to emotion. How does a person hate? Why does a person love? They created a beings of mythology to say that these beings control these type of aspects of a human. All right. The psychological myth theory states how myths are based on human emotion and that they come from human subconscious. Okay. The three types of myths. There are subtypes of etiological myths. Etiological, sometimes spelled etological, myths explain the reason why something is the way it is today. The word etiological is from the Greek word ation, meaning reason or explanation. Please note that the reasons given in the etiological myth are not the real or scientific reasons. They are explanations that have meanings for us as human beings. There are three subtypes of ontological myths: natural, etymological, and religious. A natural ontological myth explains an aspect of nature. For example, you could explain lightning and thunder by saying that Zeus is angry. Now, anybody that was a Christian, have you ever heard that lightning has something to do with God being angry, lightning or thunder, or when thunder happened, the devil beating his wife, or stuff like that, or the devil was bowling, whatever you ever heard? Them things are based off of mythology. It's a direct mythology. This is based off Greek mythology where they thought lightning was controlled by Zeus, a mythological god. Okay. And etymological antiology, anti-logical myth explains the origin of the word. Etymology is the study of a word origins. For example, you could explain the name of the goddess Aphrodite by saying that she was born in the sea form, since Aphoros is the Greek word for sea form. Okay. A religious myth explains the origin of the religious ritual. For example, you could explain the Greek religion ritual of Elegians mysteries by saying that they originated with the Greek goddess Demeter. came down to the city of Elysius and taught the people how to worship her. You understand that? So they even have in mythology where their religion is based on mythology, the origin of the religion. A lot of these people believe that the God created that religion, that mythology of God. Because at the same time, a lot of time you going from mythical to literal to now people understand a lot of stuff is mythical, but it's still people now is more a mixture of literal and mythical, and that's what the people are battling right now. So when people, somebody like me, say this is mythical, they don't understand this mythology because they took it literal, and I think this has been going on for a long, long, long time. But I believe myself, from me understanding, there's no way these people created these mythological beings and then took them literal. You know, until it became a religion or part of that religious thought, and then they took it literal. All three of these explanations are not true. Zeus' anger is not the correct explanation for lightning and thunder. Aphrodite's name was not actually derived from Greek word Aphros, and Demeter did not establish her own religious rituals in the town of Elysus. Rather, all these explanations had meaning for the ancient Greeks, who told them in order to help themselves understand their world. Okay? Historical myths. Historical myths are told about a historical event, and they help keep the memory of the event alive. Ironically, in historical myths, the accuracy is lost by meaning is gained. The myths about the Trojan War, including the Iliad and the Odyssey, could be classified as historical myths. The Trojan War did occur, but the famous characters that we know from the Iliad and the Odyssey, Agamemnon and Achilles, Hector, probably did not exist. Now, this is the stuff I was saying. Like when I said yesterday, I told them about the Moses. I said, now what if Moses didn't split the Red Sea? What if he didn't go on the mountain and get this tablets from in an amazing way? Does that take away from the historical event of people leaving from Egypt, going into Canaan and establishing a nation? Because that's what supposed to be the purpose of that story. But again, people take the mythical part of that story and make it literal. And now, when you tell somebody that part is mythical, they want to throw the whole story of history away. Not understanding that's how they kept these histories going. But it kept it going for a long time, but at the same time, it took a lot of accuracy away. So now when you reading the story, you reading in this book, you're thinking it's the whole full accuracy of a story, but it's not because it has mythology on it. Okay, I hope that's making sense to you. Physiological, psychological myths. Psychological myths try to explain why we feel and act the way we do. A psychological myth is different from a um, etiological myth because psychological myth does not try to explain one thing by way of something else, like explaining lightning and thunder, what Zeus' anger does. In psychological myth, the emotion itself is seen as a divine force coming from the outside that can directly influence a person's emotions. For example, the goddess Aphrodite is sometimes seen as the power of erotic love. When someone has or did something that they did not want to do, the ancient Greeks might say it that Aphrodite made them do it. And look at this guy. This is Eros, god of love. This is nothing but Cupid, another form of Cupid. Okay, just like I said, the Thetios, from the Greek, the pale horse, the Grim Reaper. All of these are death. They're nothing but mythical characters put around the same real entities. So all of them are representations of death, but they're just mythical characters in each different in different cultures. That's all that means. And they're saying by you having these emotions, they created these mythical gods, saying these are the reasons that they happen. And even to all the way to the Christianity and the Bible, people are still doing it to this day. Okay, when the Most High, we understand, makes a system. The Most High does not have to impregnate every woman. It's a system that He created. The Most High doesn't have to always punish somebody. It's a system that created. Deuteronomy is a system. It's something that says if you do this, you live good. If you do this, you won't live good. It's a system. Okay. Myths based on real events, real creatures, and real people. Atlantis, one of the most well-known myths in human history and first described by Greek philosopher Plato, tells a tale of a civilization at its peak sinking beneath its waves, lost for all eternity. It is heavily debated, but a number of archaeologists think that it could have been based on the collapse of the Minoan people empire. Around 3,650 years ago, around 3,650 years ago, a powerful volcanic eruption rocked Santorini. These referred as Thera. The vast magma chamber was emptied and catastrophic quickly that the core of the island collapsed, sending a tsunami across the Crete and floor and flooding much of the Thera with the inflowing Aegean Sea. Suffice to say, the Minoan civilization sunk beneath the waves and was never heard from again. So they're saying a lot of archaeologists believe that Atlantis was the Minoan Empire. Okay, meaning a mythical city that people believe is a mythical city is based off a real city. This is called mythology. So when y'all keep hearing us say mythology again, stop thinking that we are saying everything is fake. We're saying, yes, maybe Atlantis is fake, but we're not saying what Atlantis is based on is fake. Okay? Mythical humans based on real people. Merlin, one of the most famous and prominent figures in the Arthurian Legion, Merlin serves as an enchanter of wizard seeking to aid an eponymous king. That's the word, eponymous. Eponymous king, born of a devil intended as the Antichrist. Merlin becomes a close advisor, but is eventually undone by his own lust and innate evil. Tricked by one of his female students after teaching her all his knowledge, Merlin is trapped within a magical prison and left to die, although seemingly entirely fictional. After removing the fantastical components of the Arthurian legend, the character of Merlin is surprisingly founded among a combination of two separate historical individuals. And this is another thing I was saying about myth, where they can actually take two events, put it together, and make it seem like it's one event. They can take two people, put it together, and create a whole mythical person. They can take two creatures, put it together, and make a whole mythical creature. So that's when I tell people about when you're looking at a story and there's mythical in it, how do you know that this person did this and that at the same time? How you know it's not an event from here and an event from there, and they put it together? Okay. Merlin based off two people. By 12th century, Geoffrey O. Monmouth in his Historia Regum Britannicae, written in 1136, the person known to audiences today as Merlin is actually a merging of Meriden Walet and Ambrius Aurelianus. Walet, a prophet and madman associated with the town of Carmarthen in Wales, is believed to have been a wise hermit. who fled in the forest, fought in the battle of Aphrodite during the late 6th century. Meanwhile, Aurelianus was a war leader of the Romano-British who fought against the Anglo-Saxons during the 5th century, becoming a popular rendering of a duo. Monmouth's character became immediately successful in a folk literature, enduring since a composite legend under a single moniker. So these are two people that eventually created the mythical character Merlin, a hermit and a warrior. Okay, Dracula, based off Vlad the Impaler. Okay, as the ruler of Wallachia, now part of Romania, Vlad Tepes became a notorious for the brutal tactics of employed against his enemies, including torture, mutilation, and mass murder through he did not say along with disembowelment, decapitation, and boiling or skinning his victims alive. He preferred method was impalement and driving a witness stake through your bodies and leaving them to die for exposure during his campaign against the Ottoman invaders in 1462. Vlad repeatedly had as many as 20,000 victims impaled on the banks of the Danube. Captured by Hungarian forces and imprisoned, he was finally able to regain his seat in prison. In 1476, only to be killed in battle the same year. Some particularly gruesome accounts claim that Vlad liked to die among the impaled bodies of his victims and would even dip his head into their blood. These gory details, as well as his legendary adopted name Dracula and his birthplace of Transylvania, have convinced many scholars that Vlad the Impaler provided partially inspiration for Stoker's famous vampire. So they saying a man knew, because a lot of people that create these things, they didn't just make them up themselves. Okay, they got them based off of another character. Just like Bloody Mary is based off Elizabeth, a lady named I think she might have been a princess who killed over 15 children and bathed herself from the blood. So this is how myth works. They take stuff like this, they create a mythical character over it, and then when you go back, you say, "Oh, that's where they got it from." It comes from a real person. Ain't no coincidence. This man is from Transylvania. His name is fucking Dracula, and he drinking blood. Come on now. Who else would he get it from? Like, come on. All right, let's go. Mythical creatures. Origin of mythical creatures. Every culture across the world will have their own folklore and their own version of mythical creatures. We see mythical creatures first emerging in the classical era through the intensive collection of Greek mythologies. We can see mythical creatures such as the Cyclops, Medusa, Minotaur, and the Centaur. Classical mythical creatures serve the purpose of emphasizing the heroism of those that defeated them by being so monstrous. This is the same for later religious connotations, with the mythical creatures coming to represent the devil and emphasizing the greatest of two defeated it, usually representing God. In medieval times, we can see mythical creatures beginning to have metaphorical significance through their use of allegory tales and stories where the character of settling true purpose is to deliver a wider mythical creatures would represent something symbolic. An example of this is the dragon, which came to represent the devil in the biblical passages. Other mythical creatures find their origins in local folklore. For example, the Loch Ness Monster is a famously exclusive fable creature said to have been hunted for thousands of years. Okay. Centaur appears in the Greek mythology, being half man, half horse. Centaurs often appear in Greek sculptures and primal creatures. They represented chaos and savagery living in the mountains of Greece. They are outcasts from society. Mythical characters, legions, mythical creatures that could be based off of real creatures. The siren. In mythology, these are now the first ones I show are mythical characters that they can't be based that they can't find them based off of anything, so that they didn't ever exist or none of didn't exist at all. They just became a mythological character of the story. They're just not true. Okay, even though it might be, but they just can't find them at the time. All right, in mythology, I'm not saying there's a human and half animal. I'm just not saying that. So, let me. All right, the siren in mythology, these dangerous femi fados lures sailors to shipwreck and certain death for any who couldn't resist their tempting calls. Sometimes depicted as mermaids, with the tail of a fish and the body of a beautiful woman, the sirens was both haunting and thrilling monsters in seafaring legends. In reality, some anthropologists believe sirens were inspired by dugongs, dugongs, a large sea mammal with a fluted tail and a close cousin to the manatee and the elephant. Like their animal relatives, dugongs are peaceful plant-eating creatures, but since they live close to the shore, approaching them too closely could risk a ship running around and hitting dangerous rocks, probably inspiring their legends. Okay, so this is how they told stories. This is how they educated. And you know how stuff goes when people start telling stories and gossiping and all this stuff changes. They become more and more supernatural. Have you ever heard of a person do so much in the streets and did so much that when you finally heard them, when people say, "I thought you were 7 foot tall. I thought you was this. I thought you was a big, strong person," because the way stuff you hearing about a person, that's how it starts. Okay, that person becomes a mythical character, even in streetwise. All right, the Kraken, beneath the dark and churning sea, lurking in the deepest, most impenetrable waters, a giant monster called the Kraken awaits, or so the legend goes. Myths from around the globe, some dating back to 2,000 years, tell of the terrifying um, tentacles, tentacle beast capable of tearing a sailing vessel in half. Many believe the legend of the Kraken came from sailors' encounters with the giant squid, an animal so exclusive it rarely ever been photographed in the wild, let alone thoroughly investigated and researched by scientists. All more than 30 feet long and weighing more than 400 pounds, giant squid can grow large enough to tackle a sperm whale. So it's understandable why they come across as intimidating. However, the fact that they are so hard to spot suggests that they are shy animals that keep to themselves and have no desire to interact with humans, hardly a creature to fear. Myth story similarities. There are over 100 different world mythologies that we know of today. Among these are Greek, Roman, Norse, Etruscan, Celtic, Slavic, Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Arabian, Islamic, Hindu, Buddhist, Chinese, and many more myths. Anyone with the knowledge of more than one of these world mythologies will realize that there are some glaring similarities between them, between both all of them. Okay, some of them myth stories like the flood. A flood myth is a narrative in which a great flood, usually sent by a deity or deities, destroys civilizations. often in the act of divine retribution. In Genesis mythology of the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh God decides to flood the earth because of the death of the sinful state of mankind. That's where you get the Noah's Ark. The Hindu myth, Manu, find that the Sapatha, Brahmana, and the Puranas is similar to that Noah story, albeit less popular, known today. A similar thing is seen in Babylonian epic of Gamish, Mesopotamian flood stories, stories in Greek mythology and Bergenmer in Norse mythology. So that's when people saying, "Oh, it's a flood here, it's a flood there," and not understanding these floods are in different nations at different times. Some of these nations are older than others. So either this story, this flood, is so old that it's been passed down to different nations, or either it's a story that they just made up. But I would say it could be stories from floods that happened of ancient times that just been passed down and created into mythology. Relevant that's turned into a mythology. Okay, not just one, many different floods. Okay, all right. I think that's it. Let me see. Gotta edit. Oh, okay. Hold on. I think I got three more. All right. I don't know how that happened, but all right. Let's get to it. All right. Oh man, what happened? All right. Hold on. Hold on. I gotta do this. I'm gonna do it like this. The last parts. All right. All right. Greek mythology used today. These are just names that we use today, but they come from Greek mythology, and we use it today. Amazon. The online rental store is named after the group of the strong woman warriors who were trained in combat and archery and known as the Amazons. Pandora. The jury brand took its name from the first mortal woman in Greek mythology. Her name meant all gifted. Hermes. He was the messenger of the Greek gods, but today you will see that this name of the company is specialized in luxury goods, lifestyle accessories, and perfumes. Dove. The dove was a symbol of Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. Unlever owns a personal care brand by the same name. Apollo, the U.S. space program to take astronauts to the moon, was named after Apollo based on the god's ability as an archer to hit his target. Nike, the U.S. sports apparel company, is named after the Greek goddess of victory. Cerberus, the Australian Royal Navy, has a training factory in Victoria named HMAS after the multi-headed dog that guarded the gates of the underworld. Serial, the genetic name of the I ain't better get that part. All right. Then let's go to the zodiacs. Aquarius, the water bearer, comes from the Greek myth about a flood after Zeus poured all the waters from the heavens out onto the earth to wash away to destroy the wicked and evil men. Aries, the ram, Zeus placed a golden ram image among the stars in honor of its heroism. Cancer, the crab, was a creature sent to the goddess Hera to destroy Hercules. Capricorn, the goat. The Greek mythology, Capricorn is a god Pan and was half man and goat from the waist down and had goat's horns and ears. Gemini, the twins were Castor and Polydeuces. Together, they were known as the Dioscuri. Leo, the lion, linked to the labors of Hercules at first task, which was killed. It was killed the Nemean lion. Libra, the scales, represented balance and justice, harmony, equilibrium. In Greek mythology, the goddess of justice is Themis, and she is pictured holding the scales. Pisces, the fish, named after Aphrodite and Eros, who were turned into fish by Zeus to help them escape danger. Um, Sagittarius, the centaur, named after Centaur Chiron, who taught man medicine and was kind to Jason and Argonauts. Scorpio, the Scorpio was creature created to sting and kill the hunter Orion. So Tarius, the bull, named after the white bull Zeus, turned himself into to help win the affections of Europia. And Virgo, the maiden, named after the goddess of innocence and purity in Australia. That's it. Okay. I think that's it. And last but not least, my outro. Although today have an empirical evidence of a soul of survival or some type of consciousness after death, most people still believe in some sort of eternal existence. Many scientists, philosophers, and New Age adherents have each attempted in his or her own way to prove the essence of people's survival and belief. People's survival. Let me put that. All right. Many scientists, philosophers, New Age adherents have each attempted in his or own way to prove the essence of a person's survival's physical death. Although people may not believe in Greek pantheons of God and goddesses, the essence of the Greeks' belief of a soul and some sort of continued existence beyond death continues to this day. So again, we go back to the video, really study this. If you want to know what mythology is, if you want to know what fully mythology is, if you want to know what you're reading as mythology, what parts you believe in certain books of mythology, I'm talking about to the Quran, to the Bible, to whatever book you read. There's a lot of mythology and a lot of this stuff. I want to know where a lot of these words of the weeks come from, of the months, of the hours. Everything is based off a lot of mythology. Okay, so y'all look out for. We go to Deuteronomy 28 later on tonight, probably like 10 o'clock. Deuteronomy 28 is not the slave trade, and we're gonna be breaking down what it was, and that it's not a prophesized event. This is the things I got to start realizing. All right, peace out. Peace to the Zodiac Research Team. Peace to the Benzadaki group. Peace to the DOA Hit Squad. All right, I'm out. Oh yeah, let me play that song. I'll leave it out for y'all. You know what? I'm just going out.